I know you like games, and not the kind you play just on a Friday night. I'm talking about high-stakes poker, where the pros don't just play the cards, but they play the table. They read the tells, they understand the probabilities, and most importantly, they manage their risk. Now, the best poker players in the world don't go all in just because they feel lucky. They do it when their odds are in their favor, and they hold fast when they see the table turning. That's the mindset, the strategy, the analytics, and the discipline. Now let me ask you, when was the last time you looked at your wealth plan in the same way? Because the economy we're in right now is just like that poker game. You're playing against inflation, interest rates, recession risk, and policy changes. So yes, this has a global impact with some of the volatility. All at once is where we're at. And that's really something that we want to be taking a look at, some of the big pictures, what we call the macroeconomics, to figure out where we're going. Now, Jeffrey Gundlach is one that is sounding the alarms, and he is head of Double Line Capital, which has been doing very well at predicting some of these recessions or some of the different ways to avoid pain. Now, he's giving us a 60% chance that we enter a recession this year. Not 20, not 30, 60. And this isn't even about panic, is what we're talking about. This is about preparation, because what separates average investor from the great one is how they prepare for the storms. Now, same thing is true with you. How you are separating yourself and your wealth from others, how well you prepare. That's what we want to be walking through, what Gundlach is seeing with the data, and why the global diversification is more important now versus many other times in history. Because what we want to do is help protect your hard-earned wealth, your business, and your legacy. Let's get started. Jeffrey Gundlach just laid out over 24 signals that point to rising economic stress and a 60% probability of a recession in 2025. Now, we just talked about this, that this is just his predictions, but just a couple months ago, we were a lot lower, only about 20%. His predictions are rising fast for a recession. And we take a look at things like the yield curve, when we talk about short-term interest rates versus longer-term ones, and whether it's inverted or disinverting. And historically, this has actually been a very good indicator of recessions. Now, here's why this matters, because the curve is starting to uninvert, and when that happens, recessions actually begin. So that is something that does come about. Then we have the Atlanta Fed, which has been projecting between 2 and 3% growth, has just turned negative. Now we're at negative 2.5% growth and contracting. So this is not a good sign from our own government, and Jeffrey looks at that as well. And that happened practically overnight. Now, what we talk about here are the different leads, the Lion's Wealth, economic activity and development. And what we look at are all the different predictions on where we're going for an economy. And so this isn't something that we have been really surprised by, because over the last couple of months, we've known that we've had a contracting economy. Now, where do we go from here, though, could actually be more of what's going on with a political front, a geopolitical front, and an economic front. That's a lot. But we also take a look at jobs, and this is the second and third element that Jeffrey Gundlach was talking about, and all the different hiring expectations or some of the unemployment risks that are starting to tick up. So when we take a look at those, starting to see some cracks. Also, he talked about the deficit. Now, we have a lot of political elements around our deficit here, but what's happening is that we're still printing money and we're still deficit spending. And that was something that happened during COVID and all the stimulus years that we had, but it's something that's really progressing forward now still as a structural problem. And this is not temporary as well. We're still seeing this even in spite of what our president is trying to do to rein it in. Gundlach is calling out a lot of different things like the tech sector as well, and the Magnificent Seven as being overpriced. And there's no sector that's invisible to some of these pullbacks in a recession. That's really not a recipe for success. And what he's trying to say is that cracks are starting to show. And what that means is that it's not too late to make some subtle changes, but we need to do it now to be prepared for the future. What do we need to do? Here's the big picture. And here's where we're helping our clients right now. We look at scenario plans. You see, what we do is help to map out the what ifs and take a look at different scenarios. So what if the market drops 20%? What if we have income in your business go down? What if we look at all the different scenarios and things that are happening with recessions, with how that will affect your asset protection plans? And we want to prepare before anything happens. You see, that's where we can take a look at different types of protection plans. So we can put things in place. We can use trusts correctly. We can create legal firewalls between your wealth and potential lawsuits, creditors, even divorces. Nothing is immune. And sometimes people want to bring a lawsuit against you just because they know that there's a possibility they can get some money when they need it the most. And whether that's right or wrong, that's something that you need to guard against. But we can also take a look at the elements of estate planning and the legacy planning that we can be going through. And there are different trusts that we can be using for that as well to really tighten up the documents. So we can be using irrevocable trusts, spendthrift clauses, bankruptcy proofing some of these structures to really work at tightening up everything in case of a recession. That's where your business and all of the different elements that work to protect you are in place. So yes, LLCs, S-corps, limited partnerships, they're all tailored to reduce your exposure. But then we take a look at the tax optimization. We can harvest losses. We can convert IRAs to Roth IRAs. We can transition some of the portfolios for longer term growth with some huge tax efficiencies. We can use alternative investments like some private credit, managed futures, real estate. We can do structured notes and other hedging strategies with buffered type of products. And we can be looking to reduce our downside risk. But I also know that there are times that we can't sell. You may have some assets, some investments that we are unable to sell for whether it's tax reasons, legal reasons. We can still use them as part of your liquidity. And even as they're coming down in value sometimes in a recession, we can still use them without selling. And that's where a pledged asset line comes into play, because we can borrow against your portfolio. So you actually never have to sell in a downturn. What you're starting to see here, this isn't a reaction, it's a strategy. And it's how you can help yourself to play offense when everything is working against you. So that's where we take a look at the recession talk and all of these different things. And it is what it is. It's either going to happen or not. And economists are really good at being bad predictors. But when it comes to actually going through a recession, we need to know that we're having everything taken care of. And that's where Gundlach is starting to point out that some of these things are critical. So yes, European equities can possibly outperform. We look at the different overvalued aspects of the US, whether it's the stocks or even sometimes some of the bonds out there, and where money is rotating from. Well, what that means for you then is that there's a lot of diversification elements, some dividend focused strategies that are out there. And we don't have to abandon the US stocks if we can plan and protect them well, because we take a look at where you're at today with your wealth plan, and we want to make sure that we're protecting it and we're risk managing your hard-earned wealth, because that's what's going to set up well for tomorrow, for the future, and for your legacy. So here's what we need to be doing, working with all of those different elements that we mentioned there. And as a business owner or a retiree, or even if you are just managing generational wealth, you can't afford to be passive here and just allow this to happen. You need to be planning. So protect first. Get the right structures and strategies to shield your assets. Plan for the volatility. And right now, with downturns and all the different things that are happening, now's the time to take a look at ways to offset that with tax loss harvesting and other strategies to take advantage of that on a tax basis. And then we can help to improve liquidity by setting up all of those different elements that we can be taking advantage of. So when the opportunity comes, we don't sell low. We actually start to buy low so that we can be planning for the future. And that is how you can customize your own wealth plan and staying disciplined without all the noise that you're hearing and all the emotions, now on the political front, but also on just a economic front as well. This has been a lot here. I completely understand that you may need to be spending some time at this. And here's the thing, there's a lot here, so subscribe to the channel. You can be kept up to date of more of these videos that you can be looking at as part of your wealth plan. And please, hit the like button as well, because we want to know what you're thinking. And here's the most important thing. As you need help, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to talk with you and help to build a strategy that can help to be recession resilient. We can work on the tax optimization and all those different elements. So with that, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I've selected this video just for you. Can't wait to see you there.